Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the Myth of Empires Closed Alpha review. So today we're going to kind of look at some of the more late game stuff. If you're looking for more of the early game stuff when you first spawn in the first 10 to 20 hours of gameplay, you're going to find all that in the previous video, which you can see in the description down below if you're looking for a link for it. Otherwise, we're going to today be talking about the PvP, the siege battles, and kind of just some of the late game systems that they've implemented, at least that we were able to access before the closed alpha closed. So let's go ahead and start out by talking about the siege battles, as I think that's something that people are really curious about, and we'll kind of get started there. So the siege battles in Myth of Empires is pretty interesting. You've got a few different systems that you have access to, which unfortunately we didn't manage to get to every single one of them, but we do have a few to go ahead and show off for you guys. So you have catapults, from simple ones to more advanced ones that can move around. You've got your battering rams, you've got your siege towers. I believe there's like some things where you can kind of pour oil down on your opponents, and some other miscellaneous things in there. There's like a ballista, some anti-attacker towers is what I would call them. They're like little ballista towers rather than just a regular ballista. And the ballista towers are something that seem to not do as much damage as the regular ballistas, because they're more intended as like a cheap way to defend your base early on, as you don't really have to unlock it through the guild tree like you would normally. So let's start out by talking about the defensive aspect, right? So you have a few different elements to it. First off, you have your walls, which you can build up, which are these big, giant, like Arc or Atlas style gates and walls that you can build, which I love that. But you don't have to build those. You could choose to do what I was trying to mess with kind of in the later end of the alpha, where I was trying to build some ramparts, and then I kind of had this idea where, oh, wait, couldn't we just have built like foundations 5 high and just use that as our ramparts and our wall? And you can. The only thing you have to be concerned about is those things can be broken really easily with just basic tools. I think I have a little bit of footage where you can see us just kind of smashing a door down or smashing the wall, and you can break them with a sword, with a hammer, with just about anything. And we'll have to see how they balance this out, because it kind of made it so once they got past that outer wall, there was really nothing stopping them from getting in. So if they do keep it this way, I think what you're going to see is you're going to have a lot of players basically just putting layers and layers and layers of those big, giant, tall, expensive to build walls all around their bases. And then they're going to take their regular base and kind of just use it as their main little hub for crafting, kind of like we did. But instead of building layers of them, how we tried to do it, where you could just break through those doors and those walls real easy with a couple people with some swords, I think what people will do is they'll put those big walls right up against the tiny walls, so the tiny walls really don't even matter at that point. Now, the big walls, since they can't be broken, at least with the tools we currently have available, with swords or hammers or just basic things, you have to actually use siege equipment. Now, the siege equipment will do different amounts of damage depending on what you're using, and so on and so forth. Again, we only had access to the simple catapult. I think our group used the battering ram, but I wasn't around for it, so they kind of just told me how it worked. So sorry that we don't have footage of that. But anyways, the catapult, we had the simple catapult, and it was only doing like 200 damage per shot to a door. It was not a lot. It was pretty dang low. And these, this door had 40,000 HP, and that could just be some balance issues. But I actually kind of liked it. It gave the walls and the big doors like a value to them. However, the battering ram can be used over and over again, and you don't have to constantly craft new boulders to throw at it. So I think that that's kind of their intention, is they want these battering rams to be more of the how to assault the outer walls. And I think they want the catapults to be either an anti-personnel type tool, or they want the catapults to be more of destroying the inner structures, where you have like your regular style base, not the big outer gates and stuff, but your actual building with like the person high walls and stuff. Either way, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It definitely needs some balancing, I think. I think the siege towers can be easily countered by simply building a wall that's taller than the siege tower goes, which basically makes them worthless at that point, which isn't that expensive to do. You can do it for just about as much as it costs to build a wall. You can build a pillar high foundation that's tall enough to block off how high the siege towers can go. I mean, the siege towers can go over those big outer walls, but it doesn't really seem like it's that much of a benefit, because once you're inside over the siege tower, I don't really see how you can get out. Since you can't build with inside somebody else's claim, there's no way to build a siege tower or a ladder or something else to where you can climb back up the wall and then get out of the wall. Like, it's a cool concept. I just think they've got to find a way, and I'm not really sure how you would do this, to where you could go over the wall, but maybe there's some ladder or rope ladder that could drop down from the siege tower or something to where you could climb back up and get out. I mean, it's cool that people can use these siege towers to kind of get up high and push up a little tower up against the walls to kind of attack other players on top of the walls, but after that, it's like you're just going to be sitting in there as a sitting duck the whole time, so it's kind of pointless. Now, aside from the siege equipment, as far as defensive stuff goes, you've got your ballistas and you've got your simple ballista towers. So the ballistas, we didn't get to mess around with too much. They seem to just hit harder than regular ballistas as far as we can tell. I'm sorry, the regular ballistas seem to hit harder than the simple ballista towers. And they also are able to be piloted by players. So players can actually use the ballistas you place on the ground, whereas NPCs can use those, or they can use the simple ballista towers. The simple ballista towers are nice because they give you a little bit more elevation, and the ammo for them is really, really cheap. They don't do a ton of damage, but we put like 700 points in siege on one of my NPCs we had in the tower, and it was hitting for like 400 something damage, and it's just kind of a little thing on the bottom left. I don't like that it works as almost an alert system, though. And what I mean by this is the simple ballista towers, when they fire and do damage to something, you will see a number pop up on the bottom of your screen no matter where you're at on the map. And that number is representing how much damage it did, which is cool. If you're near it, that makes sense to me. But I was all the way, attacking somebody else's base, and I saw a little number pop up on the bottom left, and it was like, oh crap, hey guys, there's someone in our base because my simple ballista tower just did 400 damage to them. We need to hurry up and go home. So it almost worked like an alarm system. So that's something I personally did not enjoy, and I think that they're going to have to tweak that, maybe like give you a certain range at which it will tell you that number, or just don't show the number at all. But you still need to figure out how much damage you're doing. So I don't know. I think the best way to do it would just simply be reduce the range at which it will alert you as to the fact that it has done damage, maybe like 100 yards or something like that. Alrighty, so as far as offensive siege stuff goes, it really seems like it just comes down to use the battering ram to break down the doors and then run in and smash everything with swords right now. I think this definitely needs some tweaking. I like the idea of catapults can be used as defense or offense or anti-personnel, but at the moment, it definitely seems to be a little broken in the fact that it's basically you only need the battering ram, and if you have the battering ram, the rest you can just break with some swords and shields or some hammers or even like axes. Like, it's not hard. We had like iron tools. We were breaking down clay walls. Maybe it'll change with the higher tier walls, because I could see that for wood or something like that. Maybe being able to light it on fire or, be able to break it with an axe. But in its current state, with what we had available to us, we didn't have stone. We only had clay walls. And you were able to break those really easy with 2 dudes with swords. It took no time at all. I mean, yes, the durability on the swords would break, but I mean, we just craft 10 and take them all with us and then start smacking stuff. It was much easier than trying to launch that catapult in nonstop and making the stones for the catapult nonstop versus, just simply smashing the door down. It works so much easier. So it definitely needs some balance on the offensive side. I'm not really sure what they're planning to do with the stone walls. I do hope those will only be damageable through siege equipment. I know doors would have to be a little bit different, because otherwise you could just do like a honeycombing system. Again, I'm not really sure how you would do this. Maybe like allow a ballista to, or some other type of attacking siege equipment to be set up inside the claim that can't really do a lot of damage, but it can do more than maybe like being able to use, since you wouldn't be able to use those swords or axes or hammers to break doors down, maybe we could just use like a ballista that the attacking group is allowed to put inside your claim and use that to do it. I mean, I could see balance issues with that too, but I don't like the idea that people can break into my house with some iron tools they made real fast. It's way too easy to do in its current state. But again, this is alpha, guys, so they've got balancing to do, and we're going to have to see what comes of it. Just keep that in mind as we're talking about all this stuff. Now, real quick, something I think is also important to mention about the siege system is the claim system. So this works kind of like your judgment hour system in other games, where you can set times where you're allowed to be attacked, except in this game you get a certain amount of hours that you're allowed to pay for. And once you and not real world money, this is in-game stuff like, you know, stone, wood, grass, that kind of junk. You pay for it, and then you're able to pay for or use those hours that you've bought in order to protect your base. But there's a limit to how much you can get. I think they currently planned on 120 hours being the cap for the week. So that means you're going to have 52 hours out of the week that you're able to be attacked. And that's a lot of hours you're going to have to spread out over the course of that week that your players are going to need to be active in order to defend yourself. So if we do the math here, that is 7.4 hours you are able to not be protected each day if you were to try to divide it up evenly. I mean, obviously you could manage it so that on the weekends, maybe you had more time you're able to be attacked because you're actually going to be on. But, I mean, it's something to keep in mind that this game is going to require you guys to be on and be pretty active during those hours, as your guild, your group, is going to be at high risk of being attacked during that time period. And if you have multiple bases, that means multiple bases can have different time periods from what I understand. And those bases can either, if they're set to the same time period, both be attacked at the same time, meaning you need to defend both and be ready to defend both at both times. Or you're going to have a totally different timestamp on it. So that would make it about 16 hours almost, or 15 hours almost, where you're going to have to be able to defend that base from whatever's coming at you, which means you've only got, what, like 8 hours? What's 15? How many hours left during the day? That's like 9 hours left in the day to sleep and work, which isn't realistic. So I think people will be setting it to the same time. But just keep this in mind going forward, that this is something you're going to have to be conscious of, that this game is going to require a large time investment from a lot of players in order to successfully be able to protect your stuff, as there is that limit to how much time you have available. It's not like an hour or two of attack. It's basically 8 hours a day that you're vulnerable. Okay, so last but not least here, let's talk about the PvP, because I know this is something you guys are really curious about. How does it feel? Is it good? Is it clunky? Does it work the way it's supposed to? Is it balanced? And let me just start off by saying, first off, it is not balanced. This is an alpha. This still needs some work. There are some minor bugs that we've noticed with it, but it is something they are working on, and we know they're working on it. Just to give you an idea here of what we're talking about, we had a little PvP event we were allowed to do where everybody could kind of go in these little arenas, which I thought was pretty freaking cool, honestly. Like the fact that you could go into a little arena and just have everybody fight, which I do think they plan on having in the actual game, with no fear of losing items, is freaking awesome. I think that's a great way for people to be able to practice PvP without the fear of losing things like you do in other survival games. And I think it's a great way for people who don't have the gear to be able to compete in large group battles and still have fun with it. So the way this would work is you would spawn in, you would choose a team, and then you would choose whichever spawn you wanted. And in the alpha, there's only 2 spawns. I doubt they'll even let you do that when the game comes out. They'll just randomly pick for you. But either way, you would spawn in, and then once you spawned in, you would be able to choose your class and then play as that class. You could also change it every time you died if you wanted to, but all of them were different and had different things you were able to do. So you had, like, you know, the basic soldier who has a lot of points in his one-handed and shield skill and armor skill, who would be on foot. But what we did notice is it quickly divulged into horseback combat. You'll notice in the beginning of the footage, there were a couple people on foot, and then once everybody started getting in the server, everybody got on a horse unless you were like an archer or something standing in a place where horses couldn't get to you. And there's a good reason for that. Horseback combat is powerful, and I think it should be, because horses can't do good indoor combat. So if you're specializing your character in horseback combat, that means that you are expecting to have a lot of open area battles. I think horseback combat, personally, from my experience, will most likely be used whenever you're out farming and someone happens upon you that's not part of your group and you want to fight them on a PvP server. I don't think you'll see a lot of horseback combat unless you know you're doing kind of a riding out of Gondor type style thing with your group as you're like riding out of your gates to try to defend your walls from the outside. But aside from that, it's mostly going to be on foot combat when you're dealing with things. And you're not in an open area. So if it's a siege battle, I would say expect a lot of on foot, because you cannot maneuver the horses very well in a enclosed environment. Even in the arena, you can see I get stuck on rocks and walls like all the time just trying to move the damn thing around. And these are good horses. These horses were fast. They had high stats. They had armor, they had everything you could want, and I'm pretty sure if you spawned in as a horseman, you also got riding skills, which would help you maneuver better. So just keep that in mind. I think they have a good balance right now where horseback is powerful, which it should be. I mean, in any historical fight you would have, the guy on horseback would usually win. Of course, you still have a chance if you're on the ground. You can still defend yourself. But I think there's a nice balance there right now with the way they have it, where if you're on horseback and you're able to have an open field where you can move around easily, you're going to have a distinct advantage in the fight. As far as the on-foot combat goes, where you're kind of slashing with your sword and shield, it was a little bit different. You had this kind of weird bug in the game where you could actually clip your weapon through the opponent's shield if they had one. I don't like the blocking system the way they have it. Right now it's you hold left trigger, or I'm sorry, left mouse button to like hold a swing and prepare to attack. But that is also you blocking in that direction. I personally am not a fan of this at all. I really would love to see them have it set up in such a way that maybe you could hold right click to block, and then left click was to prepare an attack. Because in the current way, you're preparing an attack while also blocking. So it kind of creates this deficit where if you're whoever swings first, if the opponent blocks, they automatically lose that hit right there. There's really not a lot of way to recover from it. Aside from that, I think the combat on ground was pretty good too. I think it worked the way it should work. There's not a lot of impact when you make those contacts with enemies, but it is there. You can still hear the slashing sound of you going through your opponents and stuff. There is some perks that we noticed that some of the NPCs had, which I thought were totally broken and definitely need some balance. But again, it's alpha. That's okay. We're fine with that. Just to give you a perspective here, one of them I think was if the NPC blocks your attack, you have a 1 in 5 chance for it to instantly break your weapon no matter what the durability was. And to me, that is just that's crazy because some of these weapons cost a lot, especially early on. You know, you're struggling to make a bronze sword at best. And you losing that to an NPC just blocking you mid-combat, now you have no weapon, that just seems completely unbalanced. So I'm sure they'll fix those things. This game, again, it's alpha, it's got work. We've talked about this a bunch. But aside from balance purposes, it felt good. It genuinely felt good. I like the 8-way combat. I know other people don't. I think they could go 4-way combat where you have, just your traditional scroll wheel and then up, down, left, right, bottom. But at the end of the day, I like the 8-way. The corner attacks seem to still be blockable, even if you're blocking on the side. It's all about where the weapon's moving in space, kind of in the same sense you have with any other medieval game, where you have to actually be having whatever is blocking make contact with it as it's moving, no matter which way. I just don't like the hold left trigger to block thing. I think that is not good whatsoever in my personal opinion. That is the one thing I would really change about it. Aside from that, group PvP was good. I enjoyed it. There's currently this weird situation that we found where if your opponent doesn't have a bow, you can just take all your armor off and just sprint away. Because if they're wearing armor, you can run faster than them pretty much no matter what they're wearing. I know the light armor gives less of a reduction, but we had a couple encounters where my buddy was fighting near one of the major cities, and we both got knocked off our horses, and he just ripped his armor off and sprinted and got away no problem whatsoever. And since they didn't have a horse to chase him down and they didn't have a bow, he just got away no questions asked. So I don't know if I like that. I think it should maybe take like a second or two to rip your armor off. It shouldn't be a quick interchange, because I think what we're going to see is a lot of people will be running medium armor in battles to get the extra bonus that you can get in perks for your ranged weapons. And then once they get into a close combat situation, they'll quickly swap onto their heavy armor, where that just doesn't seem right to me. And I think if you're putting on armor, you should have a timer for it. It shouldn't just be, instantly put it on and you're good to go. I think you need at least like a 2 or 3 second timer for you to unequip and equip each piece. I know it may be a little annoying for people, but I think for balance purposes, that would be a huge step in the right direction for PvP, because I can see it right now. People are going to be running around naked, and then right before they get to you, you're just going to see them macro all their armor on in like 2 seconds. So just something to be aware of. Another thing that I think needs balance changes, but I mean, again, this is an alpha, guys. At the end of the day, the PvP, the siege battles, they felt good. I enjoyed all of them. They were fun. They were interesting. They were a little bit different than what you see in other games, but not so far apart that you wouldn't know what to do. I do think there's balance that needs to be done, but of course, this is an early access game. We don't even have access to all the things they're going to allow us to use probably in siege battles yet. But as far as PvP goes, I think they've done a great job. I think they need to keep polishing, and they need to keep working on some minor bug issues like with the clipping of shields, and they'll be good to go. This game is honestly way closer to being ready to release than I think any other alpha or beta I've played in a long time has been. They've got everything together that they need to have. The core groundwork is there for the PvP and siege battles, as well as the rest of the game. Everything from taming animals to planting things to growing things to harvesting to gathering to PvP to PvE to controlling the NPCs. The basics are all there that they want. If they were to release this game 2 months from now, I wouldn't be shocked if they released it into early access. This game is solid and they've done a great job. So I'm really looking forward to playing it. I'm looking forward to making more tutorials for you guys as the game actually starts to come out and I get more access to it. I'm hoping I'll get access to some of the closed YouTuber-only events or content creator-only events they plan on doing, as I'd really love to show you guys some footage of those things. But thank you guys so much for watching, and sorry if I babbled on a little bit too much. At the end of the day, I just want to say thank you to our amazing viewers. You guys make this channel work. Without you, we couldn't be here. And thank you to the Myth of Empire devs who have been so supportive in helping me make these videos and giving me access to their game and reaching out to me about wanting to share it. I'm very appreciative of that, as it helps us and it helps them. I do recommend you guys go check out the Myth of Empires Discord. We'll give you a link in that down below. That way, if you guys do want to get access to it, you can. If you are looking for a group to play with, we'll give you the access to our Discord channel where you guys can hit up with us, and hopefully we'll make a big group right when the game comes out, and we can have kind of like a little game advisor guild type of thing going on. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you like the video, and we will see you next time.